Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of my tutorial on how to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Some of you may have noticed that I uploaded a video yesterday and then took it down, and that now this video is coming out today, which is a day late. This is because the video I released yesterday tried to cover too much in one video and it was a little bit sloppy. So I took it down, and since then I've decided to sort of reorganize the series a little bit to make things easier. So instead of teaching all of memorization before doing execution, I'm going to do half of memorization and then execution and then the other half of memorization, which will make things make a lot more sense for all of you. Okay, so in this video I'm going to be discussing basically how blind solving works and how it is possible to memorize the cube in such a way that it's easy to solve. So instead of going straight to the cube, I'm going to start with a simpler example, which is just 5 cards. So ace, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to call this the solved position. So if we're thinking about this in the same terms of a cube, this is the solved position, which is just where all of the pieces, I'm going to refer to these cards as pieces from now on, are in their correct positions. So from now on, this is permanently the ace position, this is permanently the 2 position, this is the 3 position, the 4 position, and the 5 position. And this is the solved state. So now let's say we scramble our card cube puzzle, which is very easy to solve, like this, and we want to put them into the correct order. Now that's obviously very easy with our eyes open, but what if we want to do it with our eyes closed? Now, since this is only 5 cards, that's also pretty easy. But let's say we wanted to do the same puzzle with 20 cards. Look at just the cards in a row and then solve them blindfolded. Now that sounds like a much more challenging task, and how do you keep track of this? Now that is the magic of the buffer. So the buffer is one of the most important concepts in blind solving because it basically makes blind solving possible. What the buffer is you define a certain location to be your buffer. I'm going to say that this ace position is the buffer. Right now, the 2 piece is in the ace position, which is the buffer. And so what you do when you have a buffer is you make a rule, which is that you can only swap cards with the buffer. And so with this rule, which is that the only moves we can make are swaps with the buffer, it's very easy to see how we're going to solve this. Because if all we can do is swap this somewhere, might as well swap it with the 2nd position, because that's where the 2 needs to go. And then it's very easy to visualize that now the 4 is in the buffer position. And then what do we swap after that? Well, the 4 is in the buffer position, so might as well swap it with 4, because that's the only productive swap we can make. It's the only thing that will add another solved card. And then the 3 is in the buffer position. So then what we do is we're going to swap the 3 with whatever's in the 3 position, and that's the 5. Okay? And so now the 5 is in the buffer position, and the 3 is solved. And so then we swap the 5 into the 5 position, and the 5 is solved, and the ace is in the ace position, and so that's the buffer piece in the buffer position, and so everything is solved. And so it's very easy to see what our memorization is. There are only 4 moves that we can make, and I'll call the moves 2, 3, 4, and 5, and each of those obviously corresponds with swapping 2 with the buffer, swapping 3 with the buffer, swapping 4 with the buffer, and swapping 5 with the buffer. And so that way, as you saw, all we have to do is memorize linearly. We never have to check back about where things have moved, because when each time I said, for example, we swap 2 with 4, and then 4 is in the buffer, then we swap the 4 with the 3 into the 4 position, and then 3 is in the buffer, you don't, some of you may have guessed already, you don't actually have to think about that. You can just memorize linearly. So our memorization here is just 2, 4, 3, 5. and then we've gotten to the buffer piece, which is going to go into the buffer position, and everything is solved. And so if you didn't quite follow that, you can watch it again, or I'll just show you how that works right here. So we didn't think about it each time, but what's going to happen is each piece is going to go into the buffer position. So we make the 2 swap, and we make the 4 swap, and now the 3 is in the buffer position, and then we make the 3 swap, and then we make the 5 swap, and everything is solved. And assuming that you can sort of fumble around with the cards with your eyes closed, it should not be hard to solve that problem blindfolded. And so you bring the same concepts to solving a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. So here I've scrambled 5 of the corners, just like I scrambled 5 of the cards, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to start at the buffer, which for your corners is always going to be UBL, or A if you're using my letter scheme. If you don't know what UBL means, that just means that it's on the top, because U is the first letter, and it's in the back left position. Okay, so in order to memorize these corners, what we're going to do is we're going to start at the buffer, and we're going to see where does the buffer need to go. It needs to go to, okay, over here. And so this is where knowing your letter scheme and your color scheme really comes in handy. You need to know your color scheme so that you can very quickly see, oh sorry, it needs to go back here. So you can very quickly see, okay, yellow, green, orange, it needs to go, oh, okay, over here into the yellow, green, orange area. And the better you know your color scheme, the easier that's going to be. It's also very important to note that unlike the cards, which didn't have orientations, our corners have 3 different orientations. So it's important that, okay, we're not just going to this position, we're specifically going to the yellow sticker. So blind solving always deals with stickers and not pieces. So here we have the buffer sticker. So this is the buffer. This is not the buffer, and this is not the buffer. This is the buffer sticker, and it needs to go to this sticker, not here or here, because here's the yellow, and we're just tracing it over here. And so this is O. And so our first letter of our memorization is O, or for me it is if you're using my letter scheme, because that's the letter of the letter scheme. So the cards, they had their own names that came with them, like this was the ace, and this was the 3, but pieces obviously don't have names that come with them. That's why it's important to have a letter scheme so that you have a piece that needs to go in the correct spot. And so with the cards, we wanted to always move the ace to the ace position and the 2 sticker to the 2 position. So same here. Here we have the O sticker, and we want to move it to the O position. And it just so happens, well, it doesn't just so happen, but it's true that when we move the O sticker to the O position, here we have the W sticker, that'll end up in the W position, and here we have the E sticker, well, I'm sorry, the T sticker, and the T sticker will end up in the T position. And so that's really all there is to it. So we go to O, and we see, where does this need to go? This needs to go here, and because, as we can see, yellow, green, red, and it's the yellow sticker of the yellow, green, red, and so that's going to go right here. And so that is P, and that's the P position. So that's another reason why you want to know your letter scheme. You don't just want to know the scheme, but you also want to be able to recognize a piece in terms of the scheme. So like, I know this is the P sticker before I sort of trace it to its position. That's a little more advanced though. So right now you can just trace it to its position and then see what letter the position is. So my memorization is going to be O, P, and then where does this need to go? I see that this is the blue sticker of blue, yellow, orange, and so this needs to go up here. Because here's blue, yellow, orange, and here's the blue sticker, or where the blue sticker needs to go, and that's B. And then B is going to go over here to I, because that's red, white, blue, but it's the red sticker, so that's right here, red, white, and blue, and the red sticker, and that's I. And we look at I, and where does I need to go? I needs to go right here, and that's our buffer. So you might get confused, okay, what do we do with our buffer? Because we only know how to swap our buffer with any other sticker. We don't know how to swap the buffer with itself. Well, that's the thing. When you get to the buffer, you're then done, or at least done with that cycle. And so when I've gotten to the buffer, then so when going back, when I executed the O target, it's as if with the cards, I'm swapping the O card with with whatever card happens to be in the O position. So then that one's solved, and this sticker's over here. And then I'm going to do my next letter, which was P. And so all I'm doing is I'm swapping the P sticker, which happens to be in the buffer right now, with whatever sticker is in the P position. And so that sticker is going to end up there. And then I go to B, and then whatever sticker happens to be in the B position goes there, and the B sticker is solved. And then, so now this sticker is there. And then I swap it with I, and that ended up there. And now I is the buffer, so I'm done because the buffer piece has then been swapped back into the buffer position. And so the execution method that you're going to learn will basically just teach you how to swap any sticker with the buffer. So just like with the cards, the only moves we needed to be able to do were to swap the buffer card, or the buffer position, with any of the other 4 positions. So the same with the cube, all you need to be able to do to do the most basic form of execution is swap the buffer each time with a different sticker. Okay, and so one more thing I'm going to address in this video is the concept of cycles. So you might be memorizing your cube, and you might be memorizing along, and you find that you reach the buffer before all of the pieces are solved. So for example, here let's go to memorize these cards like we're going to solve them blindfolded. So remember, we defined this position over here as our buffer. And so we're going to swap our buffer here. And so our first piece of memorization is 2. And then since here's 4, and we remember, but we don't have to think about the fact that 4 is now in the buffer position, our next piece of memorization is 4. But this is the ace. So we only had 2 numbers of memorization, and we've gotten to the ace, which is our buffer piece, which is now in the buffer position, so it's solved. And we might think to ourselves, okay, we're done. But we're not done because we have to check the other pieces. And these 2 pieces, which have not been touched yet, are not solved. In fact, they're swapped with each other. So how do we deal with that? Because so far all we've done is we've taken whatever happens to be in the buffer position and just put it in its place. Well, if you think about this just a little bit, it's really not difficult to see what you need to do. Because again, I'm going to stress that all we know how to do is swap the buffer with something else. So, okay, we just swapped it with 2, and we swapped it with 4, and now those 2 are solved. So we have to swap it with something. So what you do is you just choose any of the other 2 that we haven't swapped it with yet, and swap it with them. So here I could choose to do 3, because the 3 position is not solved yet. Or I could choose to do 5, because the 5 position is not solved yet. So just to visualize this, I'm going to swap the ace with the 3 position, and then I'm going to swap. Then the 5 is going to be here. So our next piece of memorization is 5. And so you just go on and you memorize like before until you get back to where you started. So then this 3 is going to be over here, and then I go back to the 3 position. And now you're done. You might not think that you're done yet because you haven't hit the buffer piece, but if we just remember that this is where we put the buffer piece, then all we have to do is wait until we get back there, and then we're done. So to memorize this position, all you would have to do would be 3, 5, 3. Alternatively, we could also start over here, because this is another unsolved piece, and do 5, 3, 5. And so that should be no problem at all. So let's do the 3, 5, 3 one. So just 3, and the ace is there, and then 5, and the 5 is solved, and then back to 3. So the most important thing to do when you're memorizing these cycles is to remember where you put the buffer piece, and from there And from there, you just have to wait until you get back to the buffer position. Okay, so now I'm going to show an example on the cube that that involves a cycle break, which is what that is called, by the way. So here we have another position where the corners are scrambled on the cube, and we start memorizing, and we start over here, because this is our buffer. You always start at your buffer, and we're going to memorize O, because, okay, so it's still at O, but then O, okay, blue, orange, yellow, so that needs to go right here. So we're tracing it to its next position, which is here, because it's the blue sticker of blue, orange, yellow. Okay, so that's B, and then we go around, and so, okay, red, white, and blue, and it's the red sticker, so that's I. Okay, and we've reached the buffer piece. Now, note that since these cubies have 3 different orientations, it could be anywhere on the buffer piece. We could have reached here, and we could have reached here as well, and it would still be the buffer over here. And then the buffer would be twisted in its position, but then as we would continue to solve the cycles, it would untwist itself through doing other cycles. So here we went O, B, I, and we've reached the buffer. So we're done, right? Well, we're not, because we haven't solved all the pieces. So a good thing to do when you're wondering, okay, what do I do, is to put your fingers on all the places you've solved. Okay, well, we've solved O by swapping the buffer with O, and then we solved B by then swapping this sticker with B, okay, and then we solved I by swapping this I sticker from the buffer into I. Okay, and then let's put our finger here because this corner happens to be solved, and let's put our finger here because this corner happens to be solved, and we look down there, and there are only 2 corners that we're not touching, these 2. And as it turns out, neither of them are solved, and their positions are swapped with each other. And so we went O, B, I, and then all we have to do then is just choose any of the stickers on either of these pieces. Because again, all you know how to do is swap the buffer with another piece. So we just choose any of these 3 stickers or any of these 3 stickers and see where it takes us. And then, well, of course, stop when we get back to that piece. So let's choose here, which is K. Or for me, it's K. For you, it could be something else if you chose a different letter scheme. And so from K, we go down to, it's the green of the green, white, orange. And so that's on the green side, and it's between white and orange. So that's here, which is X. And then we get back to K. And so from X, it's the red of the red, green, yellow, and that's right here, which is K. And then we're done. Because what we did was, remember, visualize that the buffer is solved here. All we did was we went, okay, we're going to take the buffer down to K, and then we put K into X, and we put, and then here we have the K sticker, and the K goes in the right place, and then the buffer, which we temporarily stored right here, is then back up in the buffer position, and we're solved. So now I'm just going to show you a slightly different scramble, where it's the same, the pieces are in the same order, but I have twisted 2 corners. So, and you'll see how this makes things a little, just slightly different. So here I go O again, still the same, B still the same, I still the same. Well, sort of still the same because last time when I reached I reached this blue sticker here. But this time I'm reaching the white sticker. So don't let that throw you off. It's still the buffer piece. Even though we normally deal with stickers in blind solving, this is still the buffer piece ending up in the buffer position. And so now this buffer piece in the buffer position, just we need to break into a new cycle. Okay, so we'll choose K again. Why not? Because we like K. It's right here in the front. And from K, okay, well this time it's not. This time it's not going to X. This time it's the white sticker of the white, green, orange, and that's right here, and that's H. Okay, so then H takes us to V. And you might be thinking, well, we're not done yet because we haven't reached K again. But this is still the K piece where we put the buffer, so it's still the buffer piece ending up back here. And so And so the lesson to learn from this is that when you're dealing with targets, you want to deal with stickers. But when you're dealing with cycles, you want to deal with pieces. So to know when you've reached the end of your first cycle, you want to reach the buffer piece. And when you want to know when you've reached the end of your second cycle, you want to reach the K piece, anywhere on it. And so then you might be thinking, okay, but if I haven't reached the buffer sticker at any point, how do I know that the cube is solved? Well, let's think about it. We solved O, and we solved B, and we solved I. And then we went to K, but that didn't solve anything, because all we did was we put the buffer into K. Okay, and then we solved H, and then we solved V. Okay, so the buffer is back here somewhere, but is it in the right orientation? Well, we solved these 5 corners, and these 2 were solved to begin with. So that just leaves the buffer, so the buffer must be oriented the right way. So the rule is just never worry about the orientation of the buffer as long as all the other pieces are solved. Okay, so one final example, and then I'm going to leave you guys. I'm just going to twist 2 more corners. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I decided I didn't want to twist those 2. There we go. So now we can look at this position, and this is very similar. The only difference is that I twisted this corner here with this. So we go through our memorization, and it's actually going to be exactly the same. O, B, I, K, H, K, H, and then V. Okay, so again, we broke into the same cycle, and again, we reached this piece again, and the buffer is back here. And so now we think to ourselves, okay, have we solved the cube? Well, we look around and we see that this corner is twisted. And so clearly we haven't solved the cube. The buffer must also be twisted at the end of all of that. And so what can we do? Well, again, just go back to the fact that all we know how to do is swap the buffer sticker with another sticker on the cube. So the only 3 unsolved stickers, once we've gone through all the rest of the cycles, are these 3 stickers. Okay, so we can choose any one of them to shoot to. And so let's say we choose this one. It's J, IJ. And J, okay, our next target is here, which is M. And so you might be thinking, well, that's weird, it's on the same piece. But really, it's not so weird if you think about it like this. Okay, we put J in the buffer. We put what is in J in the buffer, and that happens to be the M sticker. Then we'll go back here, and that's M. And so if you think about that as breaking into a new cycle, it's just the smallest possible cycle. It's just a 2 cycle, because we've gone to J, and then we've gone here to M. And so we've gotten back to the piece that we put the buffer in, but this time it's solved, because we moved the sticker back to where it needs to go. And so then you might again be wondering, well, have I solved the cube yet? And of course you have, because again, we solved these 5 pieces, and then we solved this one. And so, as you know, you can't just have one corner twisted, and so the cube must be solved. And so you can think about the same kinds of things with edges. I just chose corners because there are less corners, and they have 3 orientations. Edges are harder to memorize because there are 12 of them, but they're easier in that each edge only has 2 orientations. So a flipped edge, so for edges, if you want to do some practice memorization, you can start from DF, because that's right here, also known as U under my letter scheme, because that's going to be your buffer for edges with the M2 method. And so for edges, the only difference is, so for a corner, we had 3 options as to how we wanted to twist it. We could have gone from here J to M, we could have gone C to J, and we could have gone M to C. For edges, you only have 2 options. So let's say I have these 2 edges flipped, and I got extremely lucky, and the rest of my edges were solved. Then all I can do is, okay, well, the buffer's in the buffer position. I can either go to C and then I, or I can go I and then C. Or if you want to be very special, you can have just an algorithm for flipping 2 edges. So if there's one thing to take away from this video, it's that all blind solving really is just a series of swaps with the buffer. if you get confused at any point, just think about the example with the cards, and how with the cards, all we did was we kept swapping with the buffer, and new things kept ending up with the buffer. Sometimes we get to the buffer and not everything is solved, so all we have to do is just unsolve the buffer with another unsolved piece. And that's very important, making sure we choose an unsolved piece. Because if we choose a piece that we've already been through, then we end up sort of wrecking the pieces that we've already solved. So I think that this new organization of my tutorial is going to be a lot better, and I hope you guys who were confused with the video that I posted yesterday are less confused with this one. I'm sorry that it's so long, but this is, I mean, the rest of the videos from here are going to be much shorter. So yeah, thanks for watching, and leave your questions in the comments section below.